Great. So who is 3Play Media? So I just want to start with a brief overview of who we are at 3Play. We are a video accessibility company. We were actually born out of MIT in 2007. So this presentation is kind of near and dear to us. And we are still based in Boston. When we're not, in the middle of a pandemic, our office is located in the North End. Right now, we're kind of all working remotely and scattered throughout. So hopefully that won't impact the presentation much, but certainly bear with us, as far as the technical side of things. And then we started out offering captioning, transcription, subtitling, and translation. And then several years ago, we expanded our offerings to add audio description. So I'm not sure how familiar people are with audio description, but this is an accommodation for blind and low vision viewers. And it actually narrates the visuals on the screen, kind of like an audiobook, or a lot of people think of it like a sports broadcasting. And then we also recently launched live automatic captioning. So we at 3Play are really passionate about all things related to web and video accessibility. And the reason I kind of describe all the different services here is that we really do consider ourselves kind of this one-stop shop accessibility partner. So I know we're kind of going to focus today on captioning, but we really want to be a full service solution for our customers. Great. So a little bit about how our process works at 3Play Media. Our captioning and audio description process is really unique compared to other companies, because we combine technology with humans in this kind of careful and strategic way, so that we can offer high quality solutions at a much lower cost. So the technology kind of helps us get that starting point, and I'll touch on this a little bit further in just a second. But then again, it's about quality and cost, and kind of that really careful balance there. So using the technology to kind of make things a little bit more efficient, and then using humans for quality review, we're able to offer the solution that we do. So looking a little bit closer into our captioning process, when you upload a file in the 3Play Media account system, it first goes through automatic speech recognition. This produces a rough transcript. If you've ever used things like YouTube automatic captions, you know that automatic captions can be a great starting point, but they can certainly be filled with errors. So again, this is kind of that rough draft. Then we have one of our professional editors go through. They have different areas of expertise and kind of self-select to make sure that you're getting the most competent and confident editor on your specific topic. They go through to ensure accuracy and quality. And then we actually have a third round of QA, or quality assurance review. Another human goes through and just really makes sure that we're providing that at least 99% accurate file. And then just to give everyone an idea of who we work with, we have over 5,000 customers spanning from higher education, media, government, e-commerce, even fitness organizations and associations. So we have some customers listed here. We do have MIT on there, the IRS, P&G, and some others as well. And then we're going to get into this a little bit more when Ryan goes through the account system, but I just wanted to quickly talk about our goal at 3Play. And like I said, we really want to be that kind of one-stop shop, all encompassing accessibility solution. But we also want to make sure that accessibility is easy. We feel that if we can make it easier and a better workflow for everyone, we'll just be better off. People will be more inclined to make their content accessible, but it also makes the experience better for our customers. So we make video accessibility easy in a number of ways. We have an easy to use online account system where you can manage everything in one place, from uploading files to billing. We have various number of turnaround options. So we have, up to 2-hour turnaround for shorter files, and then we have extended 10-day turnaround options and kind of several in between. We have different video search plugins and integrations for captioning to help simplify the process, automated workflows, and then those, just moving my screen, one-click video search tools. So like I said, we're really working to make this process as simple as possible. And then I think kind of the big question here is, why should you caption? So there are two reasons that usually come to mind right away. The first is accessibility, and the second is legal compliance. So these are two really important reasons. Accessibility, like I have on the screen here, is really probably the #1 reason that comes to mind. And that's great. That's a really important reason. There are 48 million Americans with hearing loss, which is about 20% of the population, and 360 million deaf or hard of hearing individuals around the world. And captions can make content more accessible to them. I have a quick statistic on the screen. It says 41% of videos are incomprehensible without sound or captions. And so it just goes to show that captions are really necessary if you do want to make your videos understandable. And then, like I mentioned, the second most common, reason for captioning that comes to mind is certainly legal compliance. I'm not going to, run through all of the laws, but just to quickly mention that there are several federal accessibility laws: the Rehabilitation Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Communications and Video Accessibility Act. And then, WCAG, the international standard for accessibility. So these are all certainly things to be aware of, and many of them do mention video accessibility and captions in some form or fashion. But those are not the only reasons that captioning is important. Specifically when it comes to higher ed and when we're talking about students, video accessibility benefits students tremendously, and actually not just those who are deaf or hard of hearing, but all students. So I want to share a few findings from a study with Oregon State University. Students were surveyed to find out how they use captions to learn, and it was reported that 98.6% of students find captions helpful. And I want to reiterate that most of these students did not report having a disability. 65% of students found captions helpful for focusing, and 75% of students said that they use captions as some sort of learning aid. So captions really improve comprehension, accuracy, engagement, and retention. And I want to just read a couple of qualitative remarks from this study. So one student said, "The closed captioning helped me, since English is not my first language, to better comprehend the content of the class and follow the professor." Another student said, "I am a visual person, so having the text there helped me better memorize the material. Also, when taking notes, it was extremely helpful." Another student said, "Useful in noisy households where it can be a struggle to hear the videos, and quiet environments where I didn't want to disturb others." And I think that last one is particularly timely for those who are, working or learning remotely and from sort of other environments than they're used to. And then before I hand it off to Ryan to kind of go through the account system, I just wanted to reiterate that the most common reason students use captions is to help them focus. So as you know, as you heard from some of the qualitative remarks, captions really benefit all students and are a very strong learning aid. And with that, I'll hand it to Ryan to kind of go through the account system in a little bit more detail.
Cool. Thank you so much, Elisa, for that. Appreciate it. The general overview, definitely helpful to understand the context of some of what we offer and sort of why we're doing what we're doing. So this portion of the presentation is really meant to tie some of those elements together. And Natalie will take over after this portion to really introduce how you get started with an account with 3Play and to begin processing work with us. So what I'm about to show you is what, for the most part, folks will see and have access to when they actually log into our system. A few of the benefits to highlight, I think, that are really important to mention, certainly flexibility. We'll get into briefly how multiple users can be added to the 3Play system with varying levels of permission. So those who log in really have access to exactly what they need to do their work and nothing more. Versus those that are maybe more admin users and manage MIT more holistically. They can have access to multiple projects and of course can create users accordingly. There's a fair amount of transparency where, you know, as soon as a file is processed, we update your invoices and any account system reporting. So really real time, you have access to the most up-to-date information as far as what you've processed and work that may still need to be done. We do offer guarantees on timelines, which is also uncommon in this industry. That we're not only giving you various turnaround levels that you can choose from, but we are actually guaranteeing that those files will be back at or before the time that was selected. So there's a lot of different controls that you have there in order to basically find the workflow and the combination of service turnarounds that work best for you. But we also do have features like upload approval, which allow admins to really manage what jobs get processed and what jobs maybe can wait. We do have a number of different options, video platform integrations and downloadable formats mainly. So if you're hosting content on YouTube or if files just exist locally on your computer, you can integrate your YouTube account with 3Play or just upload those files directly in any combination. We offer a number of services. We will focus today primarily on transcription, some about live captioning, but we also offer services like audio description and translation. But then we also have a number of different options in post-production. You'll always see the transcripts that we produce and be able to edit those transcripts directly in 3Play. And we also have tools like the 3Play plugin that make it really easy to publish content online. And so let's take a look at the account system. I'll go ahead and pop into one of the sample accounts that we have here at 3Play, and this will give you a better sense of some of the things that we're able to do. Make sure, just be doubly clear that I'm still showing the account system. So there we go. Great, so when folks log into the account system, this is really what they'll see. This My Files page here serves as the central repository for everything that gets uploaded into our system. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's a number of different filters based on the services that were ordered. So if I want to filter this list according to files that have been uploaded for our basic transcription and captioning service, I can certainly do that. Every user that logs into the 3Play system will have access to this My Files page. But as I mentioned, reporting is real time and additional users can be added to the system. So if you need some assistance managing the requests that are made in 3Play, or if you simply want to add somebody from, let's say, the accounts payable or finances team to view invoices as they're ready, you can certainly create those additional users. So before I get into that user creation process, I think it's worth pointing out here in this black bar on the top of the system is both our account overview reports. So all of this information based on services that were ordered, turnarounds and costs of those services, and the fact that these reports can be exported according to whatever email you're logged in at. So if you want to receive a CSV report, file by file, broken down of everything that you've ordered from 3Play, that information can be requested at any time. unless you ask us to. We never purge this information from our system. So we always want you to have access to this information. Now, for folks that are admins of the replay system, but maybe aren't necessarily managing the day-to-day operations in here, you can add additional users to the system. So if I go under settings down to manage users, this really shows you how each user can be added to the system with fully custom permissions according to exactly what they need to access. So if there was somebody responsible for uploading and editing files, but doesn't really need to manage users or publish files online, you can grant them access with just those responsibilities. Every user that receives or that is created here in the system will be able to set up their own passwords. And again, we'll go through that creation process from the account all the way out through adding users. Now, when it comes to ordering services here in the account system, we really try to make that process as simple as possible by allowing you to choose from a number of different ordering options, as well as linked accounts that you potentially can pull files from, such as YouTube. And so if I go under here into order services, these menus is where all of the different orders in 3Play are placed from, really regardless of that initial service that's requested, whether it's our traditional transcription and captioning service, or if you happen to have a verbatim transcript for a piece of scripted content, for example, ahead of time. But assuming you're looking for us to transcribe and caption your content from scratch, we do offer a number of different service turnaround levels for our standard transcription service. So I'm going to go ahead and mute a couple folks here. There we go. And so in this transcription and captioning area here, you can see how our default is English. So most content starts in English and then perhaps is translated into other languages from there. But when you're uploading your files, you can choose from a number of different service turnaround levels, which really gets into some of the benefits of that upload approval permission that I mentioned. You can grant many 3Play users with the ability to upload files and choose from different service turnaround levels. But the upload approval permission only allows users with that permission enabled to approve of files that were uploaded. So if I, as a user, log in and request a file for 2-hour turnaround, but I don't have that upload approval permission, this order would pop into a queue for users with that permission enabled. And they could say, you know what, this file does need to be processed, but it doesn't need 2 hours. It's not that urgent. Let's go ahead and process it for same day and push it through. Or, you know what, this file doesn't need to be transcribed and captioned at all. I, as the upload approval user, can go ahead and outright reject this order. So there is a lot of flexibility, again, to grant access to many users to be able to upload content and a few users to be able to approve that content and essentially pay for it to be processed. Now, one of the things, the really cool benefits of our system here, and it really speaks to how important accuracy is to us, is that on a file-by-file basis, or at the project level, if you wanted to, for more broad university-wide terms or acronyms, you can add specific information that we refer to as a cheat sheet or glossary for information that is, for example, not readily online and would give additional context to our transcriptionists as they're working on your content. So if, for example, they come across a word they're not 100% certain of, they're first trained as a best practice to search online and find that information for anything that is readily available. But when all else fails, they will actually search through your cheat sheet information. So things like acronyms or the names of buildings on campus, or perhaps for files that are in this batch, maybe there's a professor that is presenting on a particular topic and their name is difficult to pronounce or spell. You would be able to actually specify those instructions here at the file level, and so that the editors can actually search for the name of that professor and capture it correctly. This information is not required, and we still guarantee our accuracy regardless of whether or not that information is presented to us. So I go to the next step here. There are a couple of different add-on services, and we briefly touched on audio description earlier, and I think it's worth mentioning here. These are entirely optional. So commonly, folks are focusing on the transcription and captioning piece, making sure that all of their content online has closed captions, because naturally that's the first thing that people notice when it's not there. Folks oftentimes are not looking for audio description, but there's certainly a world where you may get a special request, an accommodation request from an individual student or group of students in a class that really require narrations of visual elements, again, for folks who are blind, in order to truly understand that content and have equal access. So the reason that we make it optional is you certainly can add on things like audio description to this order if you know that this accommodation has already been requested. But if there's no such request today and 6 months down the road, that request comes in, you can order audio description on files that have already been processed. So if it doesn't need it now, it's not an issue. Caption placement is particularly useful for words that are on screen. So again, all getting back to accessibility. If you ever have lower third graphics that introduce the name or the topic, or the name of the presenter or the topic of the presentation, for example, very common in news stories with those lower third headlines, caption placement will actually allow us to bump our captions to the upper third and then move those captions back down again when those words disappear. So there's a lot of optional services here, but again, either of these can be ordered down the road if you don't realize there's lower third graphics, for example. Now, when I get to the upload step here, you'll notice that there's a number of different video platforms that I can choose from. And this is not the comprehensive list. We offer many platform integrations from Brightcove and YouTube to Vimeo and Zoom. There's a lot of different options, including, as you can see, a few different cloud storage providers such as Google Drive. And so you always have the flexibility to choose files locally on your computer or upload content through third-party links. But the beauty of linking up a video platform is that happens one time with a simple username and password most often. And once that account is actually linked to 3Play, when I click Choose Files, you'll notice how my public library of YouTube content actually displays directly in 3Play. So this really simplifies the caption request process, but also the process of delivering those captions back to this video player, because you have the option to configure these linked accounts to allow 3Play to actually auto post captions as soon as that content is complete. So if, for example, I chose to transcribe and caption these 2 videos in my YouTube account, once I add these files and then push the order through, as soon as that work is complete, I'll be alerted via email to the email address that I'm logged into here in the 3Play account system that my files are done. But I also have peace of mind knowing that there is no manual step required to ensure that that SRT caption file is delivered to YouTube in the appropriate format, and that it allows your end users, your audience viewing this content, to just click that closed caption icon and turn those captions on. And this also works, that same experience works if that content is embedded on a web page, for example. So if the content is hosted on YouTube or Brightcove or any of the other integrations that we offer, whether that student is going to youtube.com and viewing the content, or they're going to the page on your website where that video is embedded, the captions will be available no matter what. Now, you can also organize content within 3Play. So this is independent of any sort of organization that you have within the video player or perhaps within your own internal systems. But you can either create a folder at the time of upload to organize that content, or you can actually choose existing folders that you've already created in the 3Play account system. And this also, just to kind of tie it back to those cheat sheets, we do allow for folder-specific cheat sheets as well. So you can assign them to the entire project for acronyms that are used university-wide and may come up in every piece of content. You can add cheat sheets to specific folders. So when I choose a folder to upload these files into, those specific cheat sheet instructions can apply. Or as I mentioned earlier in this ordering process, you can also add a cheat sheet on this specific file level. And so when I advance to the next page, really the last step in any ordering process is to review the order. So we're always going to show you, based on your per minute rates and the services that were requested, what the estimated costs of those services are. So we're super transparent in that regard. But as I mentioned earlier, as soon as the files are done, you'll also be able to view them in your account overview and billing sections in the system. So no matter what, that information is readily available. As soon as I place this order here, I would be automatically taken back to an option here that allows me to either upload another batch. So if there was a different set of service combination that I needed, or a different file specific cheat sheet that would be added to a different batch, I can either order more services directly from here, or I can pop back to the My Files page. And as you can see, it'll be really obvious after you've ordered to those with access to 3Play which files have been completed and delivered back. And it'll be even more obvious when you click on one of these files and view the actual transcript that was completed versus a file that is still either pending or in progress and has not yet been completed. But as soon as the order is placed, our team has already begun working on this content. And as you can see, it'll be really clear when the file was ordered, what the due date is, and what the turnaround, based on that turnaround level that was requested. So for the purposes of today, I'm going to go ahead and just cancel out these orders here, so we're not processing those files for 2-hour turnaround, and then I'll archive them to get off the My Files page. One of the things that I had mentioned earlier in this presentation was the fact that you have a lot of options here once that file is actually completed. So of course, when we've done our work and we've sent the email to you letting you know that this work has been complete, potentially we've already posted this file back to a video platform like YouTube, but no matter what, you'll always be able to click on a file and preview that transcript that we've completed. And so if there are things like misspellings or terminology that you'd like to swap, or the name of the speaker was inserted and it wasn't spelled correctly, you can come in and make those edits once that file is done by clicking this edit button. And I can actually either click edit word to adjust a single word, or if I click on a word in the transcript, the video file here on the right actually jumps right to that point. So it's really easy to preview that section, make a change, preview the next section and make a change. And when you actually click Save Changes and Finalize File here in our account system, not only are we updating all of those downloadable formats to make sure that the time codes are still apply and nothing has changed about how the video and the captions sync up, we update all of those downloadable formats, but we also automatically post any edits that you've made back to that video platform as well. So whether the linked account is set up to post the initial file as soon as we complete it, or you come in and you make edits and need to repost those edits, it's really simple in the 3Play system, and there's no manual download or upload required. If you granted a user access to our system with only edit permission, that's exactly what they could do. They could log in, click on files on your My Files page, and pick and choose the files that they edit. But you also can grant temporary access to an individual file, and I find this particularly useful in education when there may be a professor that presents on a particular topic. They're the subject matter expert, but if it's super technical, they may be the only person that makes sense to review the file or the work that we've completed. So for that reason, if it doesn't really make sense in the case of a professor to grant them access to the full account system and for them to have to learn some of those elements in the system, you can click this expiring editing link button, and it allows you to do just that. Choose the period of time for which this person has access to that file. And if I choose, for example, 4 hours and click create expiring editing link, anyone that receives this link will have access to the 3Play editing interface, but they won't have this back arrow that allows them to go into the rest of the system. So you're truly granting them access to that individual file, oftentimes based on their subject matter expertise. Cool, so we covered a lot here. The only other piece that I didn't get to was the fact that all services that were not ordered during the initial upload can be found under this single order more menu. So commonly that comes up with something, for example, like translation, where really the accuracy of that initial English transcription ultimately affects the accuracy of the translation that is created based off of that English transcription. And so for certain services, we prefer to allow folks to preview the content, make sure that it's accurate, that it meets their standards before going in and then ordering something such as translation. But as I mentioned earlier, this file is a perfect example. because I have not actually ordered audio description on this file, that is one of those options under this order more menu. So it's a perfect example where if a student reaches out, requests that accommodation, if the file's already been processed, it's simply a matter of coming in, ordering more, and then tacking on that audio description service, as opposed to having to re-upload and start the whole process over again. Cool. So we certainly covered a lot today. I can certainly go as far as the account system. I can spend a little bit of time going into live. I certainly wanted to focus on some of those elements as far as how services are ordered through this order services menu, and then some of the options in terms of editing and post-production. I want to stop there though, just to see if there's anything specifically that folks wanted to see or spend more time on, or if there's any questions that I can clarify a bit further. And I would just say, feel free to throw those into the chat, and we can cover that briefly. Cool. So it looks like the first question there is kind of a high level question, which we can certainly discuss when we get into the creation of accounts. And we did leave time for a Q&A here at the end, so I'll kind of open that up, of course, at the end there. Couple things just to note that we do offer live captioning services out of the box for both Zoom and YouTube. That is captions displaying natively within the player. We have a couple different live options for JW Player and Brightcove at this time, and we're actively working on a live solution for Facebook. Though that does get in somewhat into the weeds as you start to talk about live and and how those events are scheduled and run, and we can certainly revisit those in more detail, maybe spend a session specifically focused on live for folks who may have a more heavy responsibility in that area. I know things are kind of constantly in flux with COVID and school year approaching, so welcome to have more deep conversations around that specifically. But I'll go ahead and in that case, I'll go ahead and pass this over to Natalie here so we can talk a little bit about how accounts are created at a high level, and then what to expect once an account is created for folks to kind of get started with 3Play.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so, given the long-standing partnership between MIT and 3Play, we've created a custom landing page where anyone at MIT can navigate to and get more information about pricing and general information about how to get started with 3Play. I'm going to go ahead and put a link to this in the chat as well, so that you all have it handy and can reference it after this presentation. I'll also share with Kathy so she has that on hand. So, great. First of all, we typically ask for a $750 account credit to be placed into new accounts when they're created. For MIT users, we've gone ahead and just waived that fee. You can go ahead and just get started with 3Play without any sort of upfront commitment in terms of account credit. Essentially, you're able to just get started with 3Play and pay as you go. That is, process work as needed and then be invoiced for that work at the end of each month. Alternatively, if you prefer to load credit into an account and draw down from that, that's also an option, but not a requirement. So then we have some additional high-level information about the capabilities of 3Play that we've already covered. That Ryan did a great job of going into detail on all of these different facets and options that we offer. And then jumping down, there's a section that discusses the price per service that we offer, as well as the different turnaround options. So for captioning and transcription, the agreed upon rate for that is $1.70 per minute, which is a significant discount from the list rate of $2.50 a minute that we offer just generally for all customers. So you're getting a pretty good discount there. And then additional turnaround options, we also have discounted rates for those. Our standard turnaround time is 4 business days, but if you need your files more quickly than that, there's some adjusted pricing here as far as what you're able to order for quicker, or files where you need no rush in terms of getting the caption files back. that would be the 10 calendar day turnaround, and that's an additional discounted rate there. We also have discounted rates for live captioning, for Spanish captioning and transcription. That would be videos that are recorded in Spanish and spoken in Spanish. If you need captions for that content, we provide that as well. And then, you know, going down the page, you'll see some additional services that we offer and the pricing that corresponds with each of those. And then jumping all the way down to the bottom of the page, you'll see this Get Started form here, where you're able to fill out your information and what you're interested in using with 3Play. Once you fill out this form, it'll come directly to me. So I'm MIT's account manager with 3Play, and you know, manage the broad relationship between MIT and 3Play, as well as help new users get started. So I'll receive your information, I'll reach out and contact you and help you either get added to an existing account or get started with your own, depending on what makes the most sense. Yeah, just help you get off the ground and going with our services. So it's really easy to get started, you know, just filling out a little bit of information on this MIT landing page, and we'll get you up and running.
This is Chris from the DAS group. I saw there's a question about what is the accuracy of live automatic captioning. I was wondering if one of you could answer that one.
Yeah, Ryan.
Sure.
Cover that one.
Yeah, sure. So I would say it is at the high end. I would say anywhere from 90, slightly over 90% accuracy is not uncommon. That being said, with an auto captioning solution, things like quality of microphone, recording environment, network speed, all of those sort of presentation best practices, generally speaking, certainly apply. You can see on the low end of things, anywhere I would say from 60 to 70% accuracy, which of course is a far cry beneath our typical 99%. But again, all things considered, if you have a stable network connection, good recording environment, that being not overly spacious and echoey, that sort of thing, as well as speakers that are close to the microphones, anywhere between 85, 90 plus accuracy is generally what we see. And that's true across most events. Most folks don't have a situation where they're in this kind of airy space. Most folks really understand those best practices, and when they're adhered to, it is quite high, the accuracy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. That said, I think one of the things that we really didn't touch on today, just because it is, there's the live step first and then the upgrade path. 3Play has historically been a highly accurate human transcription service. And so for that reason, we do offer an upgrade path from those live events. So what I mean by that is when the event concludes, you can edit the raw transcript in 3Play. Oftentimes the accuracy is quite high to where you may deem that, some peeling off 20, 30 minutes to make a couple quick edits is sufficient and the upgrade isn't necessary. But we do give you the ability to choose from any of those service turnarounds Natalie mentioned in the case of a live event that's being upgraded to that 99% accuracy. So if you know that you're making this, this lecture available to the masses online within 24 or 48 hours after it concludes, we can assign that file to our human team to get them to bump that accuracy to the 99%. Certainly any other questions, I welcome those for sure.
Yeah, I see that Kathy just asked one in the chat here about a Panopto 3Play integration. Short answer is yes, we do integrate directly with Panopto. Ryan, again, you feel free to elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. It's fairly simple, same kind of linking process. So I went under the order services menu before, and it showed accounts that were already linked versus going under the linked accounts menu that still shows what you've already set up, and you can go in and adjust the settings of any of these. But if I go in to link a new account, you'll actually see the full list of integrations that we offer, including Panopto. So the process of linking accounts is fairly consistent in that whatever information that we prompt you for when you link that account to 3Play, it is coming directly from that video platform itself. And in the case of Panopto, you're creating the integration in our system, And we actually spit back keys that can be added to Panopto, and it actually creates options for 3Play dropdowns within the Panopto interface directly. So there are slight variations in some cases between the video platforms and how content is ordered, but the same general premise applies in that these accounts are linked one time and one time only. After you go through these linking steps, everything from there just kind of flows. And that does also bring up just sort of a shameless plug here for 3Play and really Elisa's team. We do a great job with SEO at our company. We produce a lot of articles, a lot of content, not only for blogs and white papers, but we will proactively update our support articles and our how-tos if we notice that, you know, for example, YouTube or Panopto changed their interface and our articles are no longer accurate in that way. We'll actually proactively update those. So if you ever have questions on our system, you know, how do I integrate Panopto? What was that thing that we talked about? Going to Google or Yahoo or whatever your favorite search engine is and searching, you know, searching for 3Play and then whatever it is that you're looking for. So for example, 3Play Panopto, and I probably brutalized that spelling, but if I search that, all of the support articles that we offer, the web pages, the things that we've produced related to that integration and some of those best practices will display at the top of those search results. So whenever you're in doubt, whether you're accessing our official support knowledge base or just performing a simple search, chances are you'll be able to find that information as well.
Great, thank you, Ryan.
No problem, no problem. Great questions though.
Does anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask?
And as folks are getting started, we can certainly have additional sessions like this too for you know, training and getting folks up to speed as users of the 3Play account system. You know, certainly we'll provide resources after this call to that end, but this is not necessarily a one-time thing if you do need you know, guidance in the future.
Great.
Okay.
Well, thank you all so much for your presentations and for the information. It was really useful, and I think it would help a lot of MIT staff get started with 3Play and see the usefulness of you know, some of the integrations that you have on your website. So thank you, Natalie and Ryan and Elisa, and you know, we will be posting this video on the captioning website, and we'll probably do some follow-ups as well if there's interest from people on the staff. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good day.
No.